So now that we have this square, and I don't want to do it that way, but we're going to do it very similar, but in more of a controlled way. Let's just say I wanted to draw another square now. This is what I would have to do. I would have to copy this, copy it, paste it down below, change what's ever going to make this guy 250 by 250, change whatever distinguishes it from the other one. We'll make this one 100, right? And then I would also, I'd have to change its variable name, right? It can't be square on square. It can tell me I should get an error. Anyway, if I'm okay, never mind. I can name them both square. And why is that? Is, now that I think about it, is because of the order of operations. If we think about it, right, I said this loop is running over and over and over until we tell it to quit, right? So what I'm doing here is I'm setting a variable called square, its location, got its rectangular information. I'm coloring it white, and I want you to put it on the screen at its right here. Then I'm resetting the value of square again, drawing it, making it this purple color, and then drawing it here. The reason I can use square multiple times is because it's creating it here, and then it's recreating it here. And the reason they're both showing up is because it draws this top one first, and then it draws the second one. Then goes around to the top, draws the first one again, draws the second one again. And since these are being drawn inside the game loop, you'll see the later we'll have to also fill this background in black each time too, eventually here, which we'll get to. But so I don't want to have to, and no one would want to have to, every square I want to make on the screen, I don't want to have to redo the code each time. Especially if I was going to distinguish these two, I would have to name these differently. The square one, let's go over here, square one, square rect one, square rect 1.x square, like everything in here I would have to rename, right? That way, if I did want to move one or the other one, I could. The way it was before, I could move them both. It would only move, like if I wanted to move this square one, it would only move square two, because it's going to draw this one first and then draw this one, right? It's going to move this, no matter what I did, it's going to move this one first if they were all still named square. Because it would go through here, it would create this square, but then when it came down to here, it would create this square, and anything I put in here to move it would only move this square because it was the last one drawn. The last time I referenced square because they were named the same. So, that probably didn't make much sense, but, so I want to get rid of all this, right? So now we're back to just our normal loop, right? What I want to do for the squares, we're just going to call them squares, is I want to create a class. And all the class is something you can set up that holds your square attributes, your basic square attributes. Everything I want a square to have, like I want to know its X and Y locations, I want to know maybe its color, and so on and so forth. And then I can just call this class every time I make a square, and just pass in a variable like color or XY location, and I don't have to rewrite everything for a square. It just uses this class as an outline to create every square that I want, And I can create 10 of them real quick just by giving it the color and the XY coordination, and then it will just create how many I want by whatever quick variables I put in. But we have to build it first. Won't make much sense, probably, but here we go. This should make sense by the time I get to the end of it, I promise. So we're going to say a class, right? And we're going to call it a square class. Even I would technically probably call this one car or log or something. However, I think I'm going to get away with everything in this game, like I said, as being a square or a rectangle, right? So if I build one in my head, I'm building one class that hopefully I can create every object in the game with. We'll see. So there, that's all it takes to create a class, right? Now I'm set to build on what I want my attributes or my initial settings of my squares to be. All classes, you have to initialize them by defining a init, right? Just like up here at Pygame init, it's the same deal down here, it just looks different. My class square, and now I'm initializing it, right? Okay. So, like I said, what do I want it to be? Alright. First thing that's new is down here, remember I just wrote square dot pg or square equals pg dot surface 20 by 20. Here, since it's in a class, you see this self. Everything is going to reference to its self, right? That just means that, okay, I want the square to have this. So I put self dot we're going to call image. Self dot image equals, again, the same exact thing as before, a pg dot surface, and we're going to make this first one anyway 32 by 32. You know, we're eventually going to get to the point where how you can create different ones based off the same exact class. And this squiggly line here is because it wants 2 spaces before and after each class. So, right, so there's its image, right? So now what do we need? It's rectangular information. So I'm going to say self dot rect equals, same as before, but everything, like I said, has the keyword self in front of it, just referring to itself, literally. Self dot image dot get rect. There's that get rect again, right? So when you create a square, I want it to have an image of 32 by 32, and I want you to get its rectangular information. And we're going to say self dot rect, right? So now that I have its rect here, I can say dot y or dot x. This time I'm going to say center x, and this is not because I couldn't do it before. I could, but center x basically means, like I said, it's x with its top left corner. Center x literally is the center of the top of that square. Like, it's literally the center. It's just a built-in function to give me the center of the square's x, right? So if it's 32 by 32, it's 16 pixels from the top left corner in, right in the middle of the square. That's all it is. And I'm going to say I want that equal to 300, right? So now I'm going to do the same thing, but with y. Self.rect.center y And that's going to equal 300 as well. That should put the square exactly in the center of the screen, right? So what else does our rectangle need? Well, for now, we're going to leave it at this, right? There is going to be plenty other things to do. We're going to add one thing now. So this first section here, this first section that I am defining under the initializing happens one time. The first time I call this class, this is going to happen. Anything else I put down here, like I'm going to put a define, or define draw. Right, and there's that keyword self gets auto put in there, right? Anything I put in draw, assuming that I'm telling it to down here, is going to run every frame of the animation, right? So now if I put draw in here, if I put the same thing that I put before for the other rect, if I put screen dot blit, and what this time it's not just the square, it's not just the value, it's the self dot image at self dot rect, just like before, but with the rect or with the self in front of it, right? So there, if I run this now, it's not going to show up. Oh, still running. My bad. Right? It didn't show up. Why? Because all we did is we created a class, but we didn't tell it we wanted it to go to the screen. We just said, hey, here's the information to make a square when you want to make a square. Right? So first things first is we want to, what do we want to be a square? What variable do we want to hold the square information in? Let's do the frog first, right? Frog equals, and then your class name, square, open close parentheses. That is just saying, hey, from now on, I want the frog to be a square. Right? I want this frog to have all of this included inside here. So this frog variable now holds all of this information. Now if I run it, it's still not going to show up, right? Because again, I said I wanted it to do this, right? This frog holds all this information, right? But none of it's inside the game loop. Like the game loop's what's running, right? My frog is outside the game loop. It doesn't know what to do. I've created a frog, but I haven't drawn it to the screen yet, right? So what I would do now how I was talking about self, when I'm talking, like, okay, this is hard to explain, but now frog, right? Frog holds all this information, right? So now I would just say, instead of self, I would type, if I wanted to access something inside the frog, I would say frog dot rect dot draw dot image, right? All these things I put up here are now available for the frog. But right now, I want to do frog dot draw, right? And what that means is now it's going to, every frame of animation, every loop through this, it's going to do this. It's going to draw frog dot image at frog dot rect. Right? So I've created a class called square. I've created a variable that's holding all the information inside square. And down here, I'm just, now that I've created the frog that has all the information of this square, I want to draw that frog on the screen. And here we go. Let's see what happens. Anything? No, still nothing. Why? Well, no color to this frog. Right, so let's, up in the draw, we are going to say self.image.fill And we're going to do it green since it is our frog, right? So my red value will be 0. Green, we'll say 255, that'll be a bright green, and then 0 for the blue, right? Now will it draw to the screen? Oh, see, there we go. I got an error, you can't see it, but it's telling me, hey dum-dum, these need to be tuples. Let's see what happens now. Does it draw to the screen? Hey, there we go. So, what we did here is we created a class called square. We said the class is going to have an image that's going to be 32 by 32. And I want to get its rectangular information so I can use it. Now with that information, I want you to set its x, its center x, which is right here. This would be its center x at pixel 300. So on the x coordinate, 300, right? That's where I want its center x to be. All right. Now I did the same thing with self.rect.center y at 300. So its center y is right here. I want it to be at 300 along the y-axis. There you go. That's why that's where our square is where it's at. Now, when it comes to drawing them, I want you to draw it at 255 green, which I want you to color it this color green, all right? And then I want you to blit it to the screen and what do I want you to blit to the screen? I want you to blit its image. It's 32 by 32. Where? At its rectangular information. And down in our loop now, so then we created a frog. I said I want you to hold all this information from the square class so I can use it for this frog. And then I want you to draw frog on the screen. I want you to like I said before, frog now takes all these attributes. So this self, like I said, when you're creating the class, is its keyword. When you're using the class, if you have a variable that's using the class, you then just use its name dot whatever this is, dot image dot rec dot. So it's frog dot image, frog dot rec dot dog, frog dot rec dot center x, frog dot rec dot center y. Right? All these are, I can access all these now because I said this frog I want to equal a square class. So I can access all those, and I want just the frog dot draw to happen every loop, right? Make it green and go to the screen. Make it green and go to the screen. Make it green, so on and so forth. But that is the end of this video. Next time we're probably going to try to maybe put that frog where it should be on the screen. Create some variables that'll make our class a lot more robust and reusable, because right now any square I make is going to be in the same exact spot on the screen. So right now our class is kind of useless, but we'll get there. And then maybe we'll move we'll be able to move the frog with the keyboard, right? So until next time, later. It's Hydro Mike. You've been watching Hydro Coding.